Hello and welcome to this driving test from the Kings Heath Test Centre in South Birmingham. We're going to be driving a full-length test route and I'll be giving you loads of useful hints, tips, maybe even some funny stories along the way. So we're going to get moving now. On this part of the road you can't actually see much because you parked on the wrong side. That's how you have to park at this centre, because there is actually no parking for the centre itself. So we're going to go around this pothole here. Now, does it matter if you go through potholes on a driving test? I'll give you the answer to that later on in the video. So we're going to be turning right at the end of the road. What do you think though? Does it matter if you go through a pothole on a driving test? Does it matter if you go bang and you smash the wheel down into the pothole? Well, I'll give you the answer later on. So we're going to be taking the next road on the right, which comes up in a moment. And this is actually the road that you finish on at this test centre, because around here the parking is so limited. You can start and finish pretty much anywhere on any of these roads around here. So as you turn into this road, it's always a good idea to have a look into the road before you enter. As you can see, there are many parked vehicles on this road. Now, a lot of people mess up because this is not just people on driving tests, this is people driving in general. They often turn into roads without first having looked into them, and they just turn in. There can be pedestrians crossing, there can be obstructions, parked cars. You see that car on the left there is maybe someone who's just finished a test. Now, there's a really common mistake people make just here. I'd say probably 9 out of 10 pupils, even though they've been trained properly, they always ask the question now to the examiner, which way are we going? Now, can you see why the examiner would not be speaking? Can you see what there is ahead of us there? Now, these people actually didn't ask that because we're doing this in pretty much silence. But yeah, it's a left turn only there, so you've got to go left. So if you ask them which way to go, they'll just say, do what you think's best. So at the roundabout, we're going to follow the road ahead, second exit. So which lane is it going to be? We'll have a look at the markings on the floor. It's the furthest one left for the way you want to go, which in this case is this middle lane, and as you can see the markings are nice and bright, clear. So when you go onto the roundabout here, which lane should it be? Well, yep, as the learner ahead did, and as we did, the left hand lane. Probably about 90% of drivers there go to the right hand lane. It's just one of those things people do. They all seem to want to swerve to the right hand lane. And people have this obsession with being in the right hand lane. You should always be as far left as you can. That includes when you're driving on a motorway or a fast road, and there is a fast road later on. You should always be as far left as you possibly can at all times. Now, when I say that, what I mean is the furthest lane to the left, not necessarily as far left as you can, smashing up against the curb. You see the car ahead's a little bit close to the curb, but not too bad. So at this point now we're just doing the show me question, where the pupil's been asked to open a window and then close the window. And I should point out, if the audio in the background goes off every now and then, that's just me muting the pupil's voice. Like now, I'm putting the audio levels down because the pupils don't always want to have their voice online. So we're going to be heading towards this 30 zone now. So we're checking what's going on behind us. There's no one too close. We've slowed down and we're going to be taking the next road on the left, which is just before Tesco. So we're going to turn into this road, and there will be times on this video where I'll keep quiet and just let you kind of enjoy the ambience of being on a driving test. So I'll keep quiet for a few moments later on. But for now, I'm going to keep giving you some hints and tips. We're going to be taking the next road on the right, not into Tesco, because I have had people there where if you say next right too early, they go and swerve to go into Tesco. Another good example there of not entering a road too quickly and being ready for any obstructions. So we're now going to pull up on the right. Now, when you're asked to pull up on the right, you can probably guess what's coming up, can't you? Yeah, why would the examiner be asking you to pull up on the right? Well, we're going to be doing the right reverse. Controversial manoeuvre, which a lot of people aren't happy about. but this is what we have to do, and I understand members of the public sometimes get quite angry with us doing this. I've had people flashing the lights at us and waving, saying, "What are you doing?" You are asked to pull up on the wrong side of the road and then reverse 2 car lengths. Now on this occasion we don't actually go back too far, but I can promise you that this is the distance they do sometimes on driving tests. I've had other times where the examiners asked them to reverse from where that white van is on the left to where we are now, so quite a long way, but it's normally about 2 car lengths back. But as you'll see in a moment, we start coming back, and I think we only do about 1 car length or something, but sometimes there are reasons why there could be something going on behind us. Now on this video, you can't see what's happening behind us. On most of my videos, as you know if you follow my channel, you can normally see the front, the back, the pedals and the interior. But this was filmed with just the front camera. That's the main thing really above all. It's nice if you can see the people, but you know, seeing the road and what's going on is the main thing. So the people's coming back and back, and we stopped there because there was a few things behind us that we couldn't come back any further for. So we're looking around now. Where do you have to look when you move off from this situation? Yep, check over your left shoulder, middle mirror, left shoulder, signal left if needed, if anyone would see it. With signals we normally say if it would benefit someone without confusing anyone. But we're now going to pull up again on the left in a safe place. Sometimes the examiner will say in a safe place, sometimes they'll just say can you pull up anywhere. Now of course they don't mean anywhere, you can't pull up on the curb, you can't pull up blocking a road. But if they don't say safe, they mean they don't mind if you block a driveway, because you'll only be there for a few seconds normally. Now on this occasion we set up the sat-nav, and I'm saying to the people, can you follow the sat-nav, and it'll lead them for about, I think it's about 20 minutes roughly on this route. Sometimes the sat-nav can be a bit less than that, sometimes a bit more, but we're going to be following the sat-nav. So this is what I mentioned earlier on. There will be parts in a moment where I don't speak for a while, just so you can sit back and see what it's like to be on a test. And I can understand when people watch these videos, sometimes people have said, well, it's not very interesting. But remember, this is a driving test, okay? It's not meant to be, it's not exactly something you do for fun. And you might notice there as well, the video just jumped back. I'm sorry about that, all it is on this particular video. The way this...
After 200 yards,
so 200 yards, turn right. The way this particular camera recorded is you had to edit out little bits, because when it went from one clip, it records in 5-minute clips, but when it goes from one to another there's a slight overlap. That's why the video would jump occasionally. I normally edit that out,
right.
But on this occasion I just forgot to do that, sorry. So there will be the occasional jump once every 5 minutes, and I'll be back to my normal high standards for my other videos.
At the end of the road, turn left, then take the second right.
End of the road, turn left. Can you see where people go wrong here?
Turn left, then take the second right.
Did you hear there what the people did wrong, and then they corrected it? They signalled left before they'd passed that little side road. Now a lot of people do that, and you can fail for signalling and going past a road like that. The reason they didn't fail on this occasion for that was because they noticed it, they took it off immediately, and there was no one around who would have been affected anyway. So it does depend what happens as a result of your actions. So at the end of this road, listen to what happens here with the sat-nav. Now it may look as though that car was signaling to turn out, but it wasn't. That was just the way that the camera records. It looks like the light is flashing when it's not. So we're going to pull up on the left just here. Can you see why we're pulling up here? Well, you might think this is a really bad place to pull up, and to be fair it's not the best place, because we are opposite a junction. But, well, we are at a junction I should say. But yeah, this is done to test the people's hill starts. And again, if you're not leaving your vehicle, there's nothing wrong with pulling up for a few seconds and moving off again. It's
After
different to leaving your vehicle parked.
Turn right.
So 80 yards, turn right.
Turn right.
The thing I was going to say there, which didn't happen, is normally the sat-nav says turn right a bit earlier, and people often indicate too soon, and they signal before they've passed that other road on the right. A little bit of rolling back there from the pupil, but does that matter? Well, you might be surprised to learn it doesn't actually matter too much. What we're looking for on the driving test is not perfection. You're not expected to be a perfect driver who does everything perfectly. People often misunderstand the point of the driving test and they think that it's all about being perfect and showing you're perfect. You're not going to be perfect when you pass the driving test. The point of a driving test is to demonstrate you have enough skill to be able to continue practicing on your own. You're not saying that you're the finished article, you're not a perfect driver. No one is. We all make mistakes. We're all human. And even robots and automated cars make plenty of mistakes, as I'm sure many of you will know. So that brings me on to another point now, the question I was asking you before about potholes. Does it matter if you go through a pothole on a driving test? Well, where I am, now I've met dozens of examiners and I've been to many test centres, and I can tell you, I've never had a single pupil ever be marked down for going through a pothole. And I've had some massive smashes where a pupil's actually damaged a tyre to the point I've actually got to get a new one, and they still haven't even been marked down on the test. Now, is that right? Is that wrong? Well, I don't know, because you know, I've never been on the official course to be an examiner. They go through a month-long course of what they have to mark, what is acceptable and what's not. But I think it's a little bit silly the way that you can go through a pothole and cause massive damage to a car, and yet you still pass. You don't get marked down for doing that. There are no doubt reasons why. There's some kind of, you know, technical reason, I suppose, but for me, I would say that if a pupil is going through a pothole and damaging the car, that is certainly something I would mention to them, and I wouldn't just sit back and let them do it. Now, you may have heard the car beep there. That's because sometimes the car will beep if you go over the speed limit, but it's not a perfect system. It often beeps when you're not speeding. It's just not a perfect system at all, so don't go by that. You can be driving along at 30 mile an hour road at 25 and it beeps sometimes. So we turn it left. What do you notice about this road as we enter this? We see how narrow the road is. It's very, very narrow, this road. And the camera quality goes down a bit there, sorry, it's just the way the camera is. Whenever you go underneath trees, this particular camera I had, which is not the one I use anymore, this one had a lot of trouble with this, all light and dark. There's a point of interest for anyone who watches my videos regularly, and if you don't, I've got hundreds of videos available. Well, this is actually pedal cam that you're watching now. Because in pedal cam's former life, pedal cam used to be, instead of filming people's feet, pedal cam used to film the road. So this is my slightly older camera, which is still good, still HD, still records at 30 frames a second instead of the usual 60 frames a second.
At the end of the road, turn left.
End of the road, we're going to turn left. And again, I'll keep quiet now just for a little bit, and I'll let you sit back and soak up the atmosphere of being on a driving test.
Turn left.
So yeah, this is what it's like to be on a driving test. They normally ask you at least one thing about yourself. They'll normally say, what would you be doing at this time of day if you weren't taking your test? And it's just to kind of break the ice a little bit. Some examiners will talk more than others. Some never stop talking, and I have had people who've said they were quite distracting. But you can always say to them if you want, you can just say, you know, I'd rather not talk too much, sorry, I just want to concentrate on my driving. And they won't mind that. Don't worry about offending them or upsetting them. The ones that talk a lot tend to be the more friendly ones, and they'll just say, oh, that's fine, and they'll let you get on with your driving. So this sat-nav section is fairly long. You're going to be following it for another 10 minutes or so. What I mean by fairly long is sometimes when you do a sat-nav route, Although they all last for roughly 20 minutes, sometimes you only get a few directions when you're on the same road, going in a straight line for quite a while. But around here, you tend to get a lot more twists and turns. So the sat-nav is generally saying a lot more than it would be on some of the routes. So we've got a car in front indicator left. Where are they going? Are they pulling up? Are they turning into a road, into a house? So we're keeping way back. This is good stuff from the people. Never assume anything, because they've been signalling for a long time there and they're going into the house. So it would have been easy to assume they were turning left into this road, and if you get too close to the back of them, that of course is not good. So we're going to carry on along this road for a short while longer. And when you're doing the sat-nav part, the examiner may still ask you to pull over. They'll still be giving you things to do, like pull over, or maybe do the show me question, show me how you wash the windows, that kind of thing.
After 300 yards, turn right.
We've already done the show me question on this test. That was the one we did earlier, with opening and closing a window. So we're taking next road on the right, and the sat-nav will say that again in a moment.
Turn right.
There you go. So turning into this country lane, and you sometimes, on this road, you can sometimes warn the people. I've heard the examiners actually say to people, be aware that there are potholes on this road. So sometimes it will help you more than others. And I've made quite a few of these mock test videos now, and people often say, you know, you're not doing it right because the examiner wouldn't say this, they wouldn't say that. You need to understand I've been on over, I don't know, 300 to 400 driving tests with dozens of different examiners from different centres in different parts of the UK. I've done them in Birmingham, Solihull, Redditch, Cornwall, Manchester. I've been all over the place.
At the end of the road, turn right.
And I can promise you that they do help pupils like that. Yeah, they're not going to give it away, they're not going to give you all the answers, but they are not like people think. Driving test examiners are generally really nice people. They're not the stereotypical, you know, power-hungry maniac with a clipboard. That's just not what they're like. They're just everyday, genuine people. Many of them are ex-instructors. Not all of them, because you don't have to have been an instructor first. Sometimes people just go straight into being an examiner because they just prefer that. They prefer being employed rather than being self-employed. But for me, I always like being self-employed. So we're going along this road now, and again they'll often warn you on this road about potholes. Now, in some other videos I'm doing, you'll see the potholes on the left there. There is another video that will be on this channel, and it shows you what happens when you get too far left into one of those potholes. Now, there are some other roads on the right here which we're not going down on this occasion. You see that sign on the left for the roadworks over the bridge? If you miss that, you could be in trouble because you could be going quite fast over this bridge, and there could be a queue of cars here, although there's not on this occasion. So that road we just passed on the right back there, and another one coming up further on. They are really nasty roads. They have got massive potholes. I mean, they're not potholes, they're virtually ditches. It's like the ditch you can see down the left there to the side of the grass, between the grass and the hedge. It's a bit like that all the way down the actual road. It's terrible. It's what you call scarring, so the road's kind of scarred. So we stop in here behind this car ahead, and as you can see, the pupils allowed good tyres and tarmac. What that means is when you stop, you should be able to see the tyres and the tarmac, a little about centimetre or 2 centimetres of tarmac between the bottom of the car's tyres ahead of you and your bonnet. You can see the cars ahead are sitting on the brakes as well, which is not the best way of doing this. You should apply handbrake and neutral. If you're the first 3 vehicles in a queue, it's acceptable to wait in first gear because you need to be ready to move off. But if you're further back than that, then it's advisable to do handbrake and neutral. And in many modern vehicles, that will actually shut the engine off and help you save a bit of fuel and to cut down on pollution. So not always the best thing to do to sit on the brake. Not so bad in the daytime, but at night time that can dazzle drivers behind you. So you see on the left they're doing lots of roadworks here. They're actually digging another hole, never mind repairing the ones that are there, they're actually digging more. And it might look there as though we're hitting the cones, but we're not. It's a bit of an illusion on this camera, we're going around these potholes as you can see. Sometimes you have to do things on these videos and people say, why are you swerving, why are you doing this? We're not actually swerving, we just go around the potholes. I mentioned before, things like speed bumps often look very different on this camera when you play them back.
After 300 yards, turn
it can
right.
look as though we're flying over speed bumps and smashing the car down on the ground from the air, but we're not. It's just the way the camera works, the way it looks. So next road on the right. Now there's a great hazard.
Turn
It's that
right.
man jogging. I remember once I had a people there who very nearly hit a man jogging. It wasn't this one, but they very nearly went into a man jogging, and they just kept saying, well, there was a car coming towards me, and they actually thought it was acceptable to hit a pedestrian if he would avoid them crashing into another car. And I did have to educate our people that that wasn't the case. But I'd like to point out as well that this route, you're actually watching a bit of history here without even realising it. This is actually one of the first ever routes that was devised for the new driving test, which started back in, when was it now, 2017 I think it was, I can't remember now, late 2016, sometime around there. This was the first ever route designed to do that test in Birmingham, and this was one of the trial routes that was used. I took part in the trials where some of my pupils did these routes with the sat-nav before anyone even knew the sat-nav was coming in.
After 500 yards, go right on the roundabout and take the 4th exit.
And I remember it was quite funny because this examiner walked into the waiting room and said to my people, we won't be using the sat-nav on this route. And the people in the waiting room looked around at each other and said, what, sat-nav? What are you talking about? And this was about 2 years before he came in, and I was one of the first people to ever take part in the trials of the new driving test. So
Go
going
right on the roundabout and take the 4th
right on the
exit.
roundabout, 4th exit. Now this roundabout has changed quite a bit since this video was made. People straying left a little bit there, but I got it back before they went too far over. This roundabout is now quite different to what you see here, because this was filmed before the roundabout changed. So as you go around, there is now an extra lane, whereas there are only 2 here. There are now 3 lanes here, and we now have to normally be in the other lane. Although it's, like I say, you will see that in other videos I've done, where it looks quite different. So at this point, you see there the motorway. Yes, people do try and go down the motorway on the driving test.
Take the exit, then keep
Now
right.
what happens if you try and go down the motorway on your driving test? Well, that'll be something I'll be talking about in another video, and the answer's not as clear cut as people may think. Now listen out for what the sat-nav says about this road.
After 300 yards, keep right.
After 300 yards, keep right. Now what does that mean? Well, the examiners do help you here as well, because it's quite confusing. It does not mean go in the right hand lane. Notice as well them sign max speed 50. What does that mean? Well, keep right just means stay as you are now. It means don't go down the slip road, don't go down the road on the left. Max speed 50, why don't you have to do that? I'll give you a few moments to think about that, but you don't have to do 50 on this road. Now, it's a good idea to follow the sign if you don't know the road, but there is a good reason why you don't have to do 50 on that bend. Well, the reason is that it's only an advisory speed. You notice it wasn't in a red circle, that was a rectangle sign just saying max speed 50. You don't have to do those signs, although if you don't know the road, I thoroughly recommend that you do follow what it says. But this road, I know really well. You can easily do 70 around that bend in my car, and it doesn't feel like bad at all, it's hardly even a bend.
After 800 yards, cross the roundabout and take the second exit.
Now this is the part where loads and loads of people get this wrong and fail. So talking about passing and failing, what do you think? Has this pupil passed? Have they failed? What do you think so far? Well, we're going to apply the same rule here that we did earlier, which is about keeping as far left as you can. So look at the floor.
Cross the roundabout and take the second
The left
exit.
lane goes ahead, so we use the left lane, and we stay in the left lane. So you keep in your lane. Do not stray to the middle lane, which is what loads of people do and fail, because you cannot go to the middle lane from the left lane from where we were there. So we come off in the left lane. Perfectly done. Nice bit of driving there. So we're now going to carry on down this road. This goes on for about 2 miles. So what they're looking for here is that you make progress. We're not going as fast as we could do, but you don't have to go flat out. We're doing a decent enough speed. And yeah, we're going to carry on. We're almost at the end of the test now. There's only about another 5 minutes left, if that. So I'm going to carry on down the road. And I know from doing this route a few times before that at the next roundabout we're going to go ahead, second exit, and this is really the last one of 2 final things people need to do to pass, is to get this roundabout correct. And loads of people get this incorrect and they fail by messing this up. So we're going to have a look at this roundabout when we get there and see if you can spot which lane it will be. And I know that, you know, the camera could be better in quality, but it's good enough that you can see what's going on. So we're going to get to the roundabout, we're going to overtake this vehicle here. That's good overtaking there because that vehicle was travelling a bit slower than we were. Now when someone is overtaking you, you should never speed up. What's quite annoying for learners is that on this road, sometimes people don't like being passed by a learner driver. They have this thing where they think, no way am I letting a learner overtake me. Well, some people are like that, most people aren't, but some people have this problem where they don't want to be passed by a learner. And that vehicle was fine. Always make sure that the car you've passed or the vehicle you've passed can be seen. You can see the front of the vehicle in your centre mirror before you return to the left lane. Never rely on just the left mirror, because the left mirror has a distorted view and the vehicle may not be as far back as you think it is.
After 800 yards, cross the roundabout and take the second exit, then turn right.
So there you go, roundabout, straight ahead, second exit. I'll keep quiet and imagine this is you on your test. Which lane would it be?
Cross the roundabout and take the second exit, then turn right.
Yep, centre lane, that's correct. Which lane would it be on the roundabout now? That's good. That's the same car in front of us that we had before on this roundabout, isn't it? We've actually met that car again at the same place, and again they've done it really well.
After 200 yards, turn right, then you have reached your
So we're now
destination.
back at the road where we started once we turned right.
Turn right, then you have reached your destination.
And on this occasion we're not going to turn right. You notice the stand nav was saying turn right, but you don't, because I would be saying to the people, don't go right there. This is what I'm saying to people about a bit of trouble with the bus there. We'll go over that in a moment. This is what I'm saying to people about don't try and learn test routes.
Turn
You
left,
would normally
then
have turned
turn
right
around
back
when
into the
possible.
centre, and you would think, well, I'm at the end of my test, I'm going back in there. Never ever assume anything, okay? Don't assume that you know where you're going, because sometimes they ask you to turn into this road on the right, and this is the one that we're going to turn into. So that with the
Turn
bus
right,
back there was a
then
little bit awkward.
Turn right.
So what do you think? Is that enough reason to fail? Well, we'll see in a moment when we get back. Did the people pass? Did they fail? Well, it all depends on what happened about. It's not as simple as people say, you failed for that, you failed for that, you passed for this. it isn't that simple. It's not as easy as just saying you pass for this, you fail for that. As the example I gave you with the pothole, then we're going to pull up on the left just before the next vehicle to move away again. And this is why we can this way, because you see on the driving test you must complete what you call an angled start. It's when you get reasonably close to a parked car like this, you allow about a car's length between you, and then they'll say to you, whenever it's safe to do so, you can continue driving. So you've got to move off again now without hitting the car ahead of you. And that was the reason why we didn't take the second right before after the roundabout. Because if you haven't had a chance to do this manoeuvre throughout your test, I have to complete it. It's a legal requirement that you've done that to be given a driving licence. So sometimes you will drive around at the end of your test. People have this theory about they just keep you driving until you fail. That's nonsense. They're not keeping you driving until you fail. That's just what people say because they're angry they failed. They're driving because I have to meet certain requirements. There are certain things I have to do on the driving test. Like not parking on a speed bump like that. Anyway, this is now almost the end of the test. We're going to be carrying on and we'll be taking the second road on the right, and then the pupil is going to pull up. And this is the moment when for many people your heart starts fluttering and pounding, and we're actually taking the second right from here, sorry, it's the third right from before, second right from here. So this is the part where people start getting panicky, their hands are sweating.
Turn right, then
And
you have reached your destination.
yeah, we're actually going to take this road on the right, so we were taking the second right side. So these videos were recorded a long time ago, and I've always kept these videos in reserve for a rainy day, and seeing as this year has been one long rainy day, that's why I'm now making these videos, so I can't remember exactly everything that happened here. Going back the pothole again, I'm going to be pulling up on the left just after this mini, probably, if I remember properly. And then the people will be getting the result of their driving test. So we pull up, and the pupil goes back a bit just so we don't block the driver. Like we said, we don't want to annoy people who live around here, so we roll back just a little bit, just so we're not going to be blocking that person's driveway. And most of the neighbours down this road have actually had driveways put in now, which is a bit inconvenient for us, but very convenient for them. So we're going back. What do you think that driving test, will that be a pass, or will that be a fail? Well, the result of that driving test was a pass. Yes, the pupil passed. That was a good drive. There was a few little bits here and there, like there was the bit with the bus, and there was well, that was about it really. The bit with the bus was the only bit that went slightly wrong. A slight roll back earlier on, but that would be a pass. The bus hadn't pulled off much, and they weren't really inconvenienced by us, and there was nothing behind that was inconvenienced by us. So yeah, that would be a pass. So check out the other videos on the screen now, and as always, I'll see you again soon for more videos.